I believe there's 5 big decisions that will affect not only the Minnesota Vikings 2021 season, but the Minnesota Vikings franchise. We're going to raise 5 questions that the Minnesota Vikings have to answer this 2021 offseason. Starting at number 1. Here, I have to find it real quick. This is my first time doing it like this. Here we go. Starting at number 1, we have deciding what to do with Riley Reiff. Now, Riley Reiff is coming off of his best season of his career. Riley Reiff, in the 2020 season, out of 15 games, scored a 71.4 PFF grade, which is really good for offensive linemen, and only 1 sack allowed and 1 penalty in 15 games. Problem is, the Minnesota Vikings are in cap hell right now. I mean, this Vikings cap scenario is not looking good at all. And Riley Reiff, we have to pay him he's expected to make $11,750,000 in 2021, and this is totally guaranteed. And he signed his contract last season, a team-friendly deal, and we know this is not really a team-friendly deal at all. I mean, this does not help the Vikings right here because of how bad the Vikings cap scenario is. So a team-friendly deal just means that they're pushing it to basically later. They're just pushing their caps later. You look at Anthony Barr again. We're going to talk about him. That's another team-friendly deal that just ended up screwing the team in the long run for the Minnesota Vikings because they were going all in the 2020 season, and it did not pan out at all because of that defense, but they were going to go all in, and now the Vikings are just looking like we're going to keep losing more of our defensive guys and offensive guys and all that, but deciding what to do with Riley Reiff. Now, the thing is, in the 2020 draft, the Minnesota Vikings drafted Ezra Cleveland in the 2nd round out of Boise State. In the later half of the 2nd round. When you draft offensive linemen in the 2nd round, you expect them to be as starters. Now, we saw Ezra Cleveland start a lot of games at right guard. Thing is, we did not see him play a snap as left tackle. And he was drafted as a left tackle to be a left tackle. He was drafted to be Riley Reiff's replacement. And as a matter of fact, I thought the Vikings were going to cut Riley Reiff and stick with Ezra Cleveland. I was surprised to see that they gave Riley Reiff another contract. Now, thing is Ezra Cleveland ready to be a starting left tackle? I don't think so. Now, we've seen him as right guard. We have not seen him play as left tackle, but I'm assuming that Ezra Cleveland might not be ready because even when Riley Reiff got COVID and he was out week 17 against the Detroit Lions, they did not start Ezra Cleveland at left tackle. They started Rashad Hill. Now, Rashad Hill is a very good backup. Rashad Hill is a good backup. He's no starter, but he is a good backup, and that's why the Vikings should give him another contract. But once again, they didn't start Ezra Cleveland. I was excited to see what he can do as left tackle. Now, is that because he's a bad left tackle? Because we have not seen, as fans, we don't know. Because we have not seen him in practice. We are only basing off of him at right guard, and he's not the best guard in the world. He does not look like a starting guard. But he's better than all of the other guys in the Vikings roster because our guards are terrible. I mean, he's better than Dozier, he's better than Drew Samia, he's better than Pat Elflein, and that's not saying a lot right there. The guard that looked the best at 2020 season was Brett Jones, and we all know from a history of watching Brett Jones, he's not very good either. He just played good last year. So what do the Minnesota Vikings do with Riley Reiff? Now, best scenario is that they trade Riley Reiff because that would be very good for the Vikings cap scenario, and we could maybe sign one of these free agent guards that the Vikings can swing on. But once again, is it the best scenario? Because we don't know what Ezra Cleveland's going to look like. And we know how bad our offensive line is already. And just losing more and more offensive pieces might not be the best spot for the Vikings to be going this 2021 offseason. It depends on Ezra Cleveland. Does Ezra Cleveland look good? Number two that the Vikings need to focus on this offseason, choosing between Anthony Barr and Eric Wilson. We saw how good Eric Wilson is. Now he's a free agent. He was a restricted free agent last year, placed a 2-year tender. Now he's an unrestricted free agent. He has the choice to either be with the Minnesota Vikings and be a backup behind Anthony Barr or go somewhere and be a starter. What do you think he's going to do? He wants to be a starter. So now the Vikings are in a spot where they have to choose between Eric Wilson and Anthony Barr because Eric Wilson can go to another team and be a starter. Anthony Barr is clearly our linebacker one. And as a matter of fact, we just basing off of last year, Eric Wilson maybe looked better than Anthony Barr's season from a couple of years ago, but we know Anthony Barr's better because we've seen what Anthony Barr can do. Anthony Barr at his peak is better than Eric Wilson at his peak. But once again, Anthony Barr is a cap casualty. I mean, he is not looking good at all. And Eric Wilson had a great season. He was a 2017 undrafted free agent from Cincinnati. He was our starting linebacker, our starting outside linebacker, because Anthony Barr did get injury, was placed on IR for the rest of the season. But Eric Wilson racked up 62 solo tackles, 3 sacks, 1 forced fumbled, 3 interceptions. I think that that was second in the Minnesota Vikings team. But this linebacker group looked great. I mean, when Eric Kendricks got injured, our linebacker group looked awful. But we saw from the first half of the season, this linebacker group is good. And it's the reason why we weren't the worst team against the run. I mean, we were one of the worst team at getting to the passer, of course, but that's just because of injuries. But once again, we weren't one of the worst teams against the run because of Eric Kendricks. When Eric Kendricks got injured, it was a totally different story. But this trio with Eric Wilson, Eric Kendricks, and Troy Dye looks perfectly fine. And I would be totally fine with the Vikings sticking with that another season. Because if the Vikings can find a trading spot for Anthony Barr, and he's a big name player. I mean, he's made a Pro Bowl. He's a first, second team All-Pro. Anthony Barr is a big name guy. And he's paid a lot of money. You can also cut him too. That's another scenario. The Vikings could cut Anthony Barr and stick with Eric Wilson. I would rather do that than sticking with Anthony Barr another season just because of how bad the cap scenario is for the Vikings. So that's possibly another spot right there. Vikings could cut Anthony Barr. And I think it would save us a lot of money if they do. But he is signed till 2020 through 2023, so he's going to be here for some time if they don't cut him. But this is a big question I have to ask all of you. Do you stick with Eric Wilson? Or do you stick with Anthony Barr? Because we've seen Anthony Barr at his peak is better than Eric Wilson at his peak. But we have to pay Anthony Barr all of this money to play here. Eric Wilson is younger. I mean, he's like 2 years younger, so there's not much of a difference there. But once again, we saw how good Eric Wilson can be. He has not hit his ceiling with the Vikings yet. Eric Wilson can hit his ceiling with the Vikings and look a lot better than he did this last season. And that's saying a lot, considering he was one of the only 3 pieces that we had on this Vikings defense. Him, Harrison Smith, and Eric Kendricks. Those are the 3 pieces that the Vikings had on the defense. We're not counting Anthony Harris's last season. All right, he did not look good at all. All right, so question number 3 that the Vikings have to answer this offseason, the new special teams. Okay, do you stick with Dan Bailey and Britton Colquitt another season? Because both Dan Bailey and Britton Colquitt, it won't save us a lot of money if we cut them. But once again, Britton Colquitt will be 36 years old going into the next season, and Dan Bailey will be 33. These are old guys. They're not going to be here for much longer. I mean, do you go a whole new special teams? I'm all aboard. I've said this multiple times. You got to get a new special teams. From how bad Dan Bailey looks this last season, I mean, he kicked under half of it. He made under half of his field goals from beyond 30 yards. And that's saying a lot, considering he's been in the NFL for 10 years now? I mean, Dan Bailey has got to go. He's got to go. And if you get rid of Dan Bailey, you got to get rid of Britton Colquitt as well. They just go hand in hand. You got to get rid of your punter and your kicker together. Not only that, but our special teams return game is terrible. I mean, we saw how bad KJ Osborne is. We don't want him to be starting another season. We didn't see Amir Abdullah do very well either. Or Chad Beebe. We have no return game. The Vikings have to fully restart on special teams. Now, they've already cut their, what is his name? Marwan Maloff. He was only here for two years as a special teams coordinator. The Minnesota Vikings cut him, or released him, I guess, since he's a coach. They released him after 2 seasons, and we saw how bad this last 2 seasons was of special teams. So bringing in a new special teams coordinator could just refresh our whole thing. And we need to restart on special teams right now. Both Dan Bailey and Britton Colquitt are signed through 2022 and are potential outs in 2021, meaning that's when they're fully guaranteed. And cutting them right now would not save us a whole bunch of money, but once again, it's worth it. Because these are aging players. You're not going to be here for another contract. Just cut them now. Just look for new guys. You have a couple seasons where you can find a landing spot for a kicker. Please, if you can cut these guys and get a new special teams, that would be huge. And that's a big decision because the Vikings can stick with these guys another season. Because both of them are potential outs in 2021, meaning that's when they're fully guaranteed their contracts. That's when they don't have to pay them really anymore, and that's when it would save us the most money if we cut them. I mean, cutting Dan Bailey and Britton Colquitt right now only would save us 1.4 million, somewhere around there. Not very much money right there. I mean, well, that's a lot of money, but in NFL terms, that's not very much money right there. And it won't save us a whole lot of money. But if you can find possibly a free agent kicker coming out of college, someone that wasn't drafted, maybe, then you can cut Dan Bailey and Britton Colquitt. Number 4, biggest decision that the Vikings have to make this offseason is 3 tech or offensive guard with the first pick. Okay, so the Vikings don't have a second-round pick in the draft. And we saw where the Vikings struggled this season. They struggled at protecting Kirk Cousins on the guard position. Now, the Offensive line gets a lot of hate, but really our tackles did well. Garrett Bradbury he held his own, but our guards were the reason why our offensive line was so bad, and they were the reason why Kirk was being pressured on just about every down. So do you focus on guard? Because that's the biggest need. I've said this multiple times. Guard is the biggest need for the Vikings this offseason. Because we need a new left guard and a new right guard. Another huge need is a 3-tech. Because Vikings ranked dead last by PFF on rushing the passer. Now, of course, we didn't have Danielle Hunter. We didn't have Anthony Barr. And those were like our two biggest pass rushers. And we didn't have Michael Pierce, another big pass rusher. Mostly a run stopper. He's not very quick. He's not like a 3-tech or anything. But if the Vikings can get a 3-tech in the first round, it's going to be hard for them to get a guard. Vice versa. If the Vikings get a guard in the first round, it's going to be hard for them to get a defensive tackle. So those are the two biggest needs right there. And both of them, what do you do with your first pick? Because you can trade down, yes, but you still have your first pick in the second round. You can still do that. What do you do with your first pick? Because if the Vikings can swing on someone possibly in free agency, maybe get a guard, that would be huge. Then you can easily take a 3-tech, defensive tackle in the first round. This is a huge decision the Vikings have to make. What do you do with your first pick? Because those were the two things that held us back the whole season. Getting to the passer and protecting the passer. And I guess stopping the run, you can put it in there. But that was mostly because Eric Kendricks was injured during like the Saints game. I mean, Alvin Kamara would not have rushed for 6 touchdowns if Eric Kendricks was out there. We all know that to be true. So that right there would be very helpful. And Michael Pierce, if he comes back, once again, that will be massive against stopping the run. That's why the Vikings struggle at stopping the run, was because of Eric Kendricks' injury and Michael Pierce opting out of the season. If those guys come back, we should be pretty good. But still, we cannot rush the passer. I mean, even with Danielle Hunter back, who knows how Danielle Hunter is going to look? He hasn't played in a full year. He's been injured. Is he still going to look like the Danielle Hunter we used to love and see? I don't know. You have to say that. You have to. What is it? What is the saying? Plan for the worst, hope for the best. That's what you got to do. So I would be fine with either way. Vikings can draft an offensive guard in the first round. Now, drafting guards in the first round is a bit of a reach, considering they usually go second, third, fourth round, somewhere around there. And Vikings are really bad at drafting offensive linemen. They are good at drafting defensive linemen. So I would probably go with drafting a guard in the first round. Wait till third round. Maybe Andre Patterson can find a diamond in the rough and draft them in the third round. And then start them over Shamar Stephen, maybe. I don't know. But the Vikings, these are two huge needs for the Vikings. Massive needs for the Minnesota Vikings this last season. All right, number 5. Future offensive coordinator. After Gary Kubiak is retiring, there is a big question at who's going to be the next offensive coordinator. Now, Vikings fan, we loved Kevin Stefanski. We loved Gary Kubiak. We keep getting new offensive coordinators every season. Who is going to be the next Vikings offensive coordinator? I don't know. I mean, right here, Hugh Jackman, he's Hugh Jackson. Hugh Jackman's the actor. Hugh Jackson, he's one people are talking about. All I remember him as is the guy who was with the Browns and after 1-15 seasons and an 0-16 season. I don't know how good he is as an offensive coordinator. Another one people are talking about is Clint Kubiak. This is a huge decision the Vikings have to make. The Vikings organization has to make real soon because Gary Kubiak is not going to be here for anymore. His son, Clint Kubiak, is the current quarterback's coach and could possibly be the offensive coordinator. I mean, that's the next step up from a quarterback's coach in the NFL is the offensive coordinator position, and he could be the next up guy. But that's a huge decision because offensive coordinators are everything in the NFL right now. Everything, especially when you have a defensive staff all your staff guys are defensive guys. Mike Zimmer's a defensive guy. We have Andre Patterson. We have all these guys who just love defense. Also, Dom Capers is retiring. Who really cares? I mean, Dom Capers didn't do anything for the team. Anyways, all these guys are defensive guys. We also have Adam Zimmer, Mike Zimmer's son. They're all defensive guys. We need an offensive coordinator who can come here and save the team. Now, our offense looked good. I'm not saying our offense looked bad. I'm saying we need someone who knows how to do their job. Because Gary Kubiak was good. I mean, he wasn't the best offensive coordinator in the world, but he was good. Kevin Stefanski was better, but Kubiak was good. I mean, he's the guy who brought in Justin Jefferson. He's the one who said that the Vikings should draft Justin Jefferson at the 22nd pick. As a matter of fact, they tried to trade up for Justin Jefferson. We're not able to do that, but still, they got Justin Jefferson. He made Justin Jefferson look great. He knew how he's going to look. Gary Kubiak did a lot for the Vikings. I don't know why Vikings fans are hating on Kubiak. He did a lot for the Vikings. I am happy for Kubiak, and now he's going into retirement. I think he is like 63, so I hope he does well, and maybe his son, Clint Kubiak, maybe could be the offensive coordinator. I don't know, but this is a big decision the Vikings have to make. Not the biggest, but a big decision that the Vikings have to make. Who is going to be the next offensive coordinator for our team? And this is a good offense to be a coordinator from. I mean, there's a lot of pieces. If you're an offensive coordinator, you want to be on a team that has this many pieces. Because, yeah, we have Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, and Dalvin Cook. But we also have Madison, Rudolph, Irv Smith Jr., Tyler Conklin, Chad Beebe. There's so many pieces you can use. And then Kirk Cousins is a great passer. It's just the offensive line that's holding us back on our offense. Outside of that, the Vikings have one of the best offenses in the NFL when you take away the offensive guard position at all. Let me know what y'all think. What do you think are the biggest decision the Vikings have to make this offseason? Because those are the 5 right there. Also, I really want to know what you guys think about, do you take a 3-tech defensive tackle or offensive guard in the first round? Because it's undoubtedly offensive guard is our biggest need. But at the same time, the value of the 3-tech defensive tackle position would be huge for the Vikings to have. But then again, you would need to take a guard in the 3rd round or maybe in a free agency. And the Vikings are you're not going to see big free agent moves for the Vikings this offseason. I'll tell you that right now. You're not going to see some big time signings, maybe 1 or 2, but you're not going to see a big free agent moves by this Minnesota Vikings team because we're -5 in the $5 million in cap space right now. I don't see anything to be made, but let me know what y'all think.